Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Psychic Charm, and today let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers and their offseason and how they're going to look going into next season. So recently, they just acquired Peyton Watson, which has got me to make this video on the Cavs, as well as getting Cam Whitmore and losing Max Strus, a first-round pick, and Dennis Schroeder. Overall, I believe they've gotten better, and I'll kind of get to that. But firstly, I got to kind of paint the picture on the Cavaliers. They made the conference finals. They lost to a really good playoff team in New York. They beat the Raptors, beat the Pistons in 7 games and fought through that, but eventually in the conference finals, the first one they've made under the Donovan Mitchell era, they just got absolutely smoked, just got swept. It looked like it could have been a competitive series, especially if you watched game 1, but the Knicks just have a knack, especially last year, in making teams blow massive leads, to their credit, and that they did, and I think that kind of took Cleveland's heart the rest of that series, at least watching, because it just did not feel competitive after that. They entered the offseason, didn't make any moves at all, and their kind of ace in the sleeve that they struck out on was LeBron. Personally, I didn't really like that fit unless you were going to move Mobley down to like the 5 and try to play LeBron at the 4 and try to get like some other point of attack defender in there, or maybe Jalen Tyson could work. But overall, I just didn't really like it from a team perspective. From a story perspective, it's cool, but from like who's going to be the guy on the perimeter guarding the other team's best defender, I didn't really love that. And their big move was Mario Hezonja. They brought Mario Hezonja to the Cavs when he's been out of the league for a couple years, which hopefully he'll be good for them. I don't know. They basically just did nothing. They lost Keon Ellis to Brooklyn. That wasn't a big deal because they didn't really play Keon Ellis much for some reason. I wish they would have more. And also, too, imagine if they would have kept him with Peyton Watson. I think that would be really good because you could rest either Mitchell or Harden and play Keon and Watson out there and have Mobley and Allen on the back line. I think that could have been really good, but regardless, I think this is a great move by Cleveland. They seemingly were just doing nothing and getting worse by being complacent in the East that was getting better around them, and they didn't really give up much to get Peyton Watson. Now, I'll get to the Nuggets and make a different video on them and their whole situation because I don't think this is really looking good for the Nuggets, but this is a great trade by the Cavs. I give this trade a solid A. I think this was a great trade for them. It really addresses their perimeter defense because before it was kind of, at least our starting lineup was Max Strus, Harden, and Mitchell, and neither of those guys are great defenders. And now you actually have somebody that can guard a team's best player on the perimeter. And I really like that, especially for a team that already has good defensive bigs, a guy that also won a Defensive Player of the Year in Evan Mobley. They as well acquired Cam Whitmore, which I did see that they might have to like waive and stretch. That is what it is if it happens. He could play good for them if they can keep him somehow. I mean, he has a year left on his deal and could play well in a contract year, and as well could be a nice depth piece to this team. I don't know how much playing time I really see him getting on this roster. Overall, I think that's nice to add, and maybe he'll play well for them, and if not, you're not really losing much. You just basically did the trade to match salaries. All they really lost was Dennis Schroeder and Max Strus and a first-round pick, which will hurt. I think it was a 2031 first-round pick or something in the 2030s, and the Cavs probably won't be good at that point. It will be a good pick for the Nuggets, but they didn't really give up much to get a young player that, who knows, could even get better. I mean, it's 4 years, $88 million, so you're paying him like $22 million a year, I guess. And that is really good value for the type of player that he is, and he could get better. I mean, last season, Peyton Watson had stretches in Denver where he really looked like he could be, not like a star or something, but a really good role player. And that's kind of what Cleveland needs, especially a defensive-oriented role player that can guard the perimeter. It hurts to lose Strus, I guess. He was a good shooter, but you still have shooting. I mean, Mitchell, Harden can shoot threes. You have Sam Merrill off the bench, who's a great shooter. And Peyton Watson, on the highest volume of threes in his career, shot 40% from 3. Even in that series versus the Timberwolves, people say if he played, that could have changed it. I don't think it really would have. He was viewed as one of Denver's best defenders, probably their second best defender outside of Aaron Gordon. To add him is really good, and to lose Strus and Dennis Schroeder, who Dennis Schroeder didn't even really fit that well with the roster, and lose a pick in the process but get a guy on a good contract, overall I give this an A. In the big picture of things, I don't really know where I put the Cavs Cavs in the East, because on one hand, I can't really say any team is like confidently better than them. Like I can't really say, and I might get crucified for this because I know people love the Sixers and the Knicks right now, and it makes sense. All this stuff has just happened, but we'll see in a year from now if things change. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I can't really say that Cleveland is much worse or anything than the Sixers or the Knicks. I can't really say that the Sixers or Knicks are that much better than them. And the same thing goes for many other teams like the Raptors. I can't really say are better than Cleveland decisively, or the Heat. I can't really say that about the Celtics. That's pretty much all the top teams in the East. Cleveland just made a conference finals. They got their ass whooped, but they just made a conference finals. And it was the first of this era with Donovan Mitchell. And I think that's a huge leap of progress for them. And adding Peyton Watson, I think only helps their chances and could help you compete against a team like New York again, because you actually have a guy that can guard on the perimeter now in Peyton Watson. But they have the personnel now to guard other teams as well as the recipe to have a good offense. We'll just see how that plays out in the regular season and in the playoffs next year. The recipe's there, and it's really been there for a while, but I think this is probably the best team that Cleveland's had so far. I mean, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Peyton Watson, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. I think this is a really good team, and they have depth as well. You have Sam Merrill off the bench. You have Jalen Tyson as well, and he's a good defender, and you could add some interesting lineups that have Mobley or Allen play the 5, and then have Watson at the 4 and Tyson at the 3, and that could be a really interesting lineup. And then of course Cam Whitmore, if you can keep him as well. I think this team is like one of the better teams in the East. I just don't really know where I would put them, because a lot of teams in the East in general, like if I'm being honest, I don't really know where I'm gonna put them. I'm gonna try to come out with a tier list ranking the teams, and I'm sure I'll be wrong. It's really weird because I can't really say anybody is decisively better than them, but I can't say they're decisively better than anybody else either. There's some pros and cons to their situation, because they've proven that they can be a 60-win team. They can grind out a series versus a team like the Raptors or the Pistons and beat them in 7. But they've also, in the Donovan Mitchell era, they've had some series that really I think they could have won. Like in 2025 versus the Pacers, they went out in 5, and that series should have went longer, especially with them winning 60 games. 2023, they lost versus New York. I think most people picked Cleveland in that series, and I don't think they should have lost in 5 games. Versus the Celtics, makes sense. Versus the Knicks last year, that makes sense in retrospect because of the Knicks just being on a historic heater. Now, I don't think they should have blown game 1, but a lot of teams blew leads versus the Knicks. So it's not saying that it's not something you could point out versus Cleveland, but at the same time too, the Knicks are the champion at the end of the day. So I mean, you lost to the champion. You made the conference finals, so who knows what they could do next year. They could be good enough to make an NBA finals. I don't know if they will be. We'll see. The East looks really good. I have concerns about James Harden, how well he'll be in the playoffs, because he's had a history, and even last playoffs, of dropping off and not being great and having high turnover games and low field goal percentage games and not looking great out there. And Donovan Mitchell, I don't really have any doubts about what he'll bring to the table. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, it really felt like the only guy trying versus the Knicks, especially even in game 4. He felt like the only guy that actually gave a shit and was trying. I don't really have questions about them, but this team has lost some series too in the past to where I don't know, like, I think it should have went a lot longer than it did, or they shouldn't have lost in the fashion that they did. Maybe that can change. You know, they've made progress. That is something that's concerning, and adding a player like Peyton Watson is nice, but I hope that this is a trend that they can break for their sake, because they've always been good. They've always been a good team in the East. Like, they've always, in this Donovan Mitchell era, they've been a top 4 seed. The problem is, if they can really show up in the playoffs, they've not really done that, at least when they've been outed. They won against, the Magic, they won against the Pistons and the Raptors. Some parts to it, like those series as well, you could argue shouldn't have went as long as they did. But I'm not trying to hate on this move by the Cavs. It's just kind of my general thoughts about them going into the season, so I don't really know where I'd rank them. I think that they're a B tier contender in the East, maybe a dark horse. I don't really think they're a tier 1 contender. We'll see throughout the season, but I've had belief in the Cavs before and it just kind of crumble, especially when they won 60 games and they lost to the Pacers, I was like, damn, that was not good. But overall, they've made the moves to get better, and we'll see how they play next season. I like this move a lot, and I think the Cavs will have a good regular season. I think that they match up better in playoff matchups with any team in the East than they did before, because you actually have a guy on the perimeter that can guard a team's best player if they're a guard or a forward. Like, now you have a guy that you could throw at Jason Tatum and feel good about. Maybe Giannis. Giannis is Giannis at the end of the day, though, too. Maybe you could throw Watson on Brunson. Maybe Brunson's too shifty for him, but that's better than having Mitchell or Harden do that task. Having a guy to guard Kawhi if you get matched up in a series with them, or having a guy that could maybe guard Jaylen Brown or LeBron or Tyrese Maxey. I think Cleveland, they have a lot of potential as a team, and I really like this move, but we'll see how it plays out in the season. But overall, I like this move. I don't understand how you can't like this move. It's just great move by the Cavs. But anyways, thank y'all for watching. This is a video that was very hard to record for some reason. I don't know why. But thank y'all for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the usual YouTube stuff. And as always, this has been Psychic Charm, and peace out.